the latest. Thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. African leaders have a summit, and in this summit, we are going to be hearing some of the presidents' speech at African Union. Some from Somalia, Botswana, Kenya, and the rest. But our all in all, the savior, the protector, the unifier, the messiah, the king of kings, the most loved, Captain Ibrahim Traore isn't present in this meeting because he has been suspended by African Union. And we know the reason is simple. According to African Union, our all in alls are not democratically governed. So for that reason, they are not supposed to be in their midst. This is how far the African has come. They are not looking at the good things that these leaders are doing. They are not looking at the developmental projects they are doing. Everything that the African leader is always concerned about is democratically governed. And this democracy is something that has been there and we are hungry. It's the same thing that is happening in Africa, and African resources are taken out of Africa every blessed day. Democracy is the same thing that is still in Africa, yet Congo is not knowing peace. And the natural resources are being taken out of Congo every blessed day. This is what African Union stands for. We are not looking at the leadership, the system of governance that would change the narrative of Africa. We have never sat down to think and ask ourselves, what has democracy ever done for us as Africans? Ever since we have started practicing democracy, what have we achieved? Like the UN General Secretary was saying, we are looking for freedom. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso decided to take their matters into their own hands. They have decided to fight oppression and look for freedom. And that freedom, we can never have the freedom with these political independence that we have. Never will that happen. We have to fight because the oppressor is doing everything possible to make sure that you never have the peace, you never have the liberty, you never have the freedom. Africans, we have never been free. There is nothing like freedom or independence. Like this parading that we do every year, telling the world that we have gained our independence, is just something that is a catwalk. We are not independent. We are still under slavery.
We have seen how our complacency over the years, and I want to call it that, has placed us in situations of vulnerability, even fatal vulnerability, where we are now at the mercy of external powers on account of our over-reliance on aid coming from the developed world. We need to move away from this, and as we do, we need also to ensure that in the future, any change that must be effected is not dependent on or driven by or triggered by crisis. Because these crises, as we learn, sound in human lives and livelihoods. We need to mobilize, as President Kagame urges upon us, domestic finance for our health care. We need, in the process of so doing, to avoid falling into the trap wherein governments pride themselves in the universal provision of standardized, low-quality goods and services. We need to provide quality health care for our people. And we need to make the point to the private sector as well that they need workers, they need skills. And these skills must be provided by healthy, vibrant workers whose health and vitality must become as much their concern as the private sector as it is the concern of the governments. And so it seems to me that the partnership is inescapable. It presents itself, it obtrudes, it pushes itself forward. Because if the private sector doesn't take its rightful place next to governments, they run the risk at some point of not having the kind of workforce that they need to power their industries and to drive their profit valorization. And so it seems to me that the case makes itself eminently for this partnership between governments and the private sector. We also need to appreciate, and I've seen it in Botswana, young professionals in the institutions of learning engaging in vigorous subjacent experimentation. One told me, went around in the most far-flung areas of the country and interviewed old people and asked them, you don't have a clinic in your area, but children have been born here. You've raised healthy families in this area. How did you do it? And he was referred to local medicine men who were using local plants and herbs. And he says he's now taken some of these and he's testing them, and he has established that some of them carry some serious potency in relation to some of these critical conditions. So we need to also harness indigenous knowledge and learning, engage in research and development of these plants and herbs that are found so abundantly in our countries, on our continent.
Your Excellency Mustafa Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Sheikh Chabot Al Nahyan, Minister of State of the UAE, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Your Excellency Dr. Workina Gabayo, Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, Honorable Ministers, distinguished heads of international and regional organizations, members of the diplomatic community, invited guests. I warmly welcome you to this high-level conference on the humanitarian situation in the Sudan. Allow me to extend my gratitude to the United Nations for its cooperation on this collective effort that brings us together today. I also appreciate the briefers for sharing critical insights into the needs on the ground. This high-level gathering underscores our shared recognition of the urgency of Sudanese humanitarian crisis and reaffirms our collective responsibility to respond decisively and with purpose. As a close neighbor and sister nation, Ethiopia stands in solidarity with the people of Sudan. During these challenging times, our two countries are deeply interdependent, bound by generations of shared struggles, aspirations, and cultural ties. Over the past 6 years, Ethiopia has actively supported Sudanese peace and stability and contributed to its economic endeavors by providing electricity through a dedicated transmission line. Sudan is a nation of abundance, blessed with fertile land and natural resources, capable of feeding millions beyond its borders. In times of relative peace, it has witnessed significant development and growth. However, since April 2023, conflict has inflicted immense suffering causing widespread displacement and destruction. We are here today because Sudan's humanitarian needs have reached an unprecedented scale. This crisis is not just Sudanese. It is a regional and a global concern, impacting lives, livelihoods, and stability across the Horn of Africa and beyond. Global solidarity is essential to ensure the Sudanese people receive food, clean water, basic health care, including vaccines and medicines, and protection against violence. As the holy months of Ramadan approach, urgent action is required, not just in words, but through tangible commitments to elevate suffering. Ethiopia will continue to stand with Sudan in its time of need, sharing from our limited resources and maintaining an open door policy for Sudanese seeking refuge. We urge donors, international organizations, and the private sector to increase their contributions and help bridge the severe resource gap faced by humanitarian actors. Despite our own challenges, we firmly believe that a neighbor in need is a neighbor indeed. Therefore, Ethiopia pledges a modest contribution of 15 million USD in solidarity with the people of the Sudan. Beyond this immediate assistance, the crisis demands an urgent political solution, as peace is the foundation for lasting recovery. We call upon all stakeholders to intensify efforts toward dialogue and a peaceful resolution. Having had the honor of supporting Sudan's peace process in 2019, I can personally attest to the wisdom and resilience of the Sudanese people. With determination and coordinated effort, Sudan's trajectory can be reversed toward peace. On this basis, I urge all Sudanese stakeholders to choose peace and guide their nation toward unity and prosperity. Ethiopia fully supports a Sudanese-led, Sudanese-owned, and inclusive peace process. We also endorse the African Union Commission and the UN Secretary General's efforts to streamline initiatives and establish a single, effective platform for peace in Sudan. I commend our partners, the African Union, IGAD, the UN, and the UAE for their collaboration in hosting this conference. I also would like to extend my gratitude to my dear brother, Dr. William Ruto, for taking time and gracing this important summit. I also extend my gratitude to all stakeholders, prioritizing Sudan and pledging resources to support its humanitarian efforts. I thank you.
Your Excellency, for those profound and inspiring words. It is also my honor to invite His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, to deliver his remarks.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Your Excellency Shabut, Your Excellency Musa Faki, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The conflict in Sudan, now in the 22nd month, has devastated a nation that just 4 years ago was on a promising path towards stability and self-sufficiency. Tragically, Sudan's progress towards food security, once exemplified by record wheat harvests and sugarcane plantations, some of which I had the occasion to visit when I served as Minister for Agriculture. All that has been reversed, leaving over half the population of Sudan food insecure and millions at the brink of hunger. This crisis is worsened by the massive displacement of millions, with an estimated 11 million people forced to flee their homes. The collapse of healthcare systems, the spread of preventable diseases, and the deterioration of medical infrastructure have further deepened humanitarian emergency. The crisis' regional impact is equally severe as neighboring countries are struggling with overstretched social services due to the growing refugee crisis. This situation demands urgent regional and global intervention. Any discussion of the humanitarian crisis in Sudan must acknowledge that this is a man-made disaster. It is deeply regrettable that the dire humanitarian situation in Sudan stems from a political crisis that has escalated into prolonged and senseless armed conflict. The obstruction of humanitarian access by parties to the conflict is simply unacceptable. We call upon all involved to facilitate unrestricted access for humanitarian convoys and healthcare workers, and to allow the resumption of agricultural activity in areas under their control. Your Excellencies, our presence here today reaffirms our unwavering solidarity with the people of Sudan. It is incumbent upon all of us, member states and people of goodwill, alike, to support ongoing efforts towards a peaceful resolution while addressing the urgent humanitarian needs of those affected by this conflict, especially women and children. Only through collective commitment and decisive action can we help restore stability and hope for a peaceful future in Sudan. Kenya continues to urge the warring parties to recognize that a military solution, if any, will not and has never brought sustainable peace. We encourage all Sudanese stakeholders to commit to a political resolution through genuine and inclusive dialogue. We continue in Kenya to provide a platform for different actors, political groups, civil society groups, to forge agreement, consensus on the way forward. And as a steadfast advocate for peace, Kenya, alongside IGAD, remains fully prepared to support and facilitate efforts towards a negotiated settlement. It is also imperative that we work together to alleviate the suffering of our Sudanese brothers and sisters. At the Humanitarian Pledging Conference for Sudan held in Paris in April 2024, Kenya pledged $1 million to support humanitarian efforts in Sudan. I am pleased to reaffirm that Kenya will fulfill this pledge with an additional $1 million to demonstrate our support for the Sudanese people. Finally, we urge all external actors supporting the warring parties to refrain from actions that further endanger the lives and future of the Sudanese people. As members of the African Union and the United Nations, we must uphold the fundamental principles of respect for territorial integrity, national sovereignty, and good neighborliness in our pursuit for lasting peace and stability in the Sudan. I thank you for your attention.
So why is it that African leaders have problem with people who are standing for themselves and fighting for the African to be free? Why are you the ones that are always chasing people that are doing everything possible to have total freedom? The same people who are putting Africans through all that we are going through have the liberty to be in your meetings. But anyway, we don't care if our all in alls are not there. What matters is they are doing the right thing. They are taking us into sovereignty. They are showing us the way. They are making us to be self-sufficient. Food, we have it. You'll be there giving speech, and very soon we thank the ancestors for bringing us Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, because in their name we'll be getting food to eat. As you always sit there and be talking about democratically governed, yet your people are hungry. That is the kind of leadership you want. Sometimes we understand is because when they don't go there, you know, they are free. There are certain things when they go, they say, and their hearts will be burning. So, and sometimes they say, birds of the same feathers flock together. These ones are not of the same feather because they have decided to move out of the shackles, to take the chains off their hands and neck and fight for freedom. And when you are always the one doing the right thing, you know the world will always tag you as a bad person. So they are not invited because of the sanctions. And we prefer this because as long as they are there, we are free. We are seeing freedom. As they are cutting aid to you and you are crying, they are self-sufficient. They are smiling. Isn't fishery? They are there. Agricultural revolution, Operation Feed Yourself, is happening all over Burkina Faso. What you have not been able to achieve under democracy for decades, they are using just few months, few years. So, get it done. Something that is taking you years to be able to do. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are just using few years to give all that we need to us, and that's all that matters. After all, we are tired. If you, the leaders, are not tired, we are tired. We, the youth, have also realized that this thing called democracy is something that the oppressor is using as a tool to keep suppressing the African people. So we are with them because we want to be free. Freedom is the national anthem of the African. So we'll listen to them, and we hope that whatsoever that they've said or they are saying, they will really put it into use, because we are not tired of speech. Like the president of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, will say, we have to move away from the speech into action. So united we stand, divided we fall. So let's keep sharing and educating our brothers and sisters together. We make Africa great, and we'll fight for a better Africa for the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world and in Africa.